Everyone, I'd like you to meet Illari, the last sun child that uses her solar-threading augmentation to strike down her enemies by harnessing the power of the sun. With a hero kit and a skin lineup that matches her origin story, this is going to be a highly skilled support hero that many people have been searching for. So let's finally talk about Illari and her abilities in the newest Overwatch 2 season, Invasion. Now, Illari is going to be the newest support hero in Overwatch 2, and just like all the other support heroes, she is going to be getting the new passive role support ability, where automatically over time she will get healed. But that's all that she's going to have as terms of a passive ability. What I've come to find is that Illari is a very simple hero on the surface, but is actually very complex once you start digging deeper into her hero kit and how she functions as a hero. So first thing we gotta do is look at her weapons. Now, her main weapon is going to be called her solar rifle, and very similar to Baptiste, she's going to have two different forms of fire: her DPS form, which is a long-range auto-charging rifle, and her healing form, which is a medium-range healing beam that consumes solar energy to heal her allies. Now, even though Illari is a support hero, I feel like she is going to be a DPS player support hero. We're going to be spending a lot of time doing DPS, so that'll be the first thing that we cover is her long-range charge rifle. When looking at the damage form of a rifle, you are going to get 14 bullets before you have to reload, which is a total different ammo pool compared to her support ammo pool. Each fully charged shot is going to do a standard 75 damage, and she has a typical critical multiplier damage. Whenever you get a headshot, that is 1.5 times that. Her damage fall off begins at 30 meters and it ends at 50 meters, where you have a 30% damage dealt at the maximum fall off range from 50 meters and beyond. And after you fire 14 bullets, or whenever you decide to reload, there is going to be a 1.5 second reload time. Now, while that's all pretty standard stuff, it's once you realize that she has a charge to her primary fire that you realize that this is how you unlock her true potential, because if you're just spamming her primary fire, you're not going to get as much damage as you desire out of her. Now, to receive a maximum charge shot, you do have to wait 0.42 seconds, which might not seem like a lot, but when we're just so naturally used to spamming abilities and weapons in game, you might find that that 0.42 seconds is a very long time to wait. And some other important details about her primary weapon is that this is a hit scan rifle, which means wherever your crosshair is, that's where the bullet is gonna go, and it is blocked by barriers, Diva's Eat, and Sigma's Grasp, and it can be deflected by Genji. But now we're on to her secondary fire, which is her primary form of healing, which is her heal beam. This will be using the exact same gun as her primary form of fire. However, it will have a separate ammo pool, but it won't be using traditional bullets, but rather a charge beam. This functions very similar to Orisa's primary form of fire, where you have a total time of 3.04 seconds to be able to heal before you hit that overheated threshold. Now, the charge time does depend on how much heals you do give, but if you do overheat your gun, it'll add an additional 1 second to the recharge time. But if you just barely do it before you overheat your gun, it'll have a max time of 2.32 seconds to recharge your gun. Now, the important stats that you need to know for a secondary form of fire: this is a 15-meter range beam, so it's kind of similar to Zarya's beam as terms of how far it goes, and it does heal for 120 health per second. Now, in between firing your secondary form of fire and letting it recharge, there is a pause time of 0.61 seconds, so it doesn't automatically start to recharge. It is blocked by barriers, but it does pass through enemies to be able to heal your team, and it can be eaten and deflect. But one final key detail about her secondary form of fire is that it doesn't heal multiple allies. It will stop at the first ally that is low on health, but it will pass through a fully healed ally to be able to reach the next ally that is low on health. But those are her weapons. Now we gotta look at her abilities, which once again seem simple on the surface, but are very, very complex. Her first ability is going to be called her Outburst, and if you're a Lucio main or a Pharah main, then you're going to love this ability, because this is going to be a mobile ability with a boop effect. Now, Outburst works kind of similar to Junkrat's Concussion Mine, where if you activate this ability, it will send Illari in a specific direction depending on what input you add to it, but it will also knock back the enemy depending on if they're in the 8-meter radius of her. It will have a 7-second cooldown that will start once you activate the ability. It does have a casting time time of 0.2 seconds that can be interrupted if you somehow manage to get in between that window, and it does deal out a somewhat insignificant amount of damage at 10 damage. But here's where this ability gets very complicated but very fun. If you activate this ability with no additional inputs, just a simple press of the button, it'll send you in the air to about 1 meter or so. But if you activate Outburst and you hold the Outburst button, it'll send you way higher at an altitude of 5.31 meters. But the fun don't stop there, because if you activate Outburst and you hold the Outburst button while moving forward, side to side, or backwards, it will add a travel distance of 13 meters. And you don't even have to look in the direction that you're going, like how Farrah's boop works. You just have to have the input direction when activating this ability, and it'll send you that way. Needless to say, this is going to be the ability that you use to get out of spawn the fastest. But now let's talk about her healing pylon, which admittedly has a lot of boring details, but important details that you need to know on how it functions. So this is going to be a thrown projectile where you're able to stick this pylon onto any surface, whether it's the ground, the wall, or moving surfaces throughout the map. But how this pylon works is that it will target your allies to actually send bursts of heals to them one at a time. This will have an 8-second cooldown, where after it hits any kind of surface, it will have a deploy time of 1.33 seconds. But after it's deployed, it will have a target radius of 15 meters, which means the diameter range is 30 meters all around. Now, like I mentioned before, it will send bursts of heals to your allies at 40 health per burst. Now, this is where it can get somewhat complicated, because like I said before, it will send bursts of heals to your allies, but it'll only send it one at a time. And how it decides of who it heals is based on who has the lowest amount of health. Not who got to it first, not who's closest to it, no, whoever has the lowest amount of health. And to be able to heal your allies, it must have a line of sight them at all times. And some other key details that you gotta know is that the heal beam can be eaten, surprisingly, even though it is a beam technically. The pylon projectile, like when you throw it, it can pass through enemies, but it will bounce off of enemies' barriers and shields. And the pylon arc is very similar to Baptiste's immortality field. It is just a little bit slower. Now, this pylon does actually have health very similar to Torbjorn's turret, and it functions the exact same way whenever you destroy it. So if you destroy it when it's not under attack, it'll just activate that 8-second cooldown. However, if it is under attack and it does get destroyed either by you or an enemy, it will have a 12-second cooldown, and the under attack status will last for about 3 seconds or so. But now that we talked about her weapons and her abilities, now we gotta talk about the thing that you have been waiting for, her ultimate. Her ultimate is called Captive Sun. It fires an explosion ball of solar, and you know what? Let me just show you. Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool ultimate. Alright, so this is a very, very complicated ultimate ability that is all based on chain reaction and explosions and damage. Let me just talk about it. So her ultimate Captive Sun lasts a maximum total of 4 seconds if not fired, and there is a 1.2 second casting time whenever you shoot that gigantic sun ball. And when you activate your ultimate, you do gain free flight, very similar to how Sigma's ultimate works. However, you aren't able to use any of your abilities during and immediately after you use your ultimate. Now, unfortunately, even though you harness the power of the sun in the palm of your hands, you can still die when you are in your ultimate form. And your ult can be stopped by CC abilities like a Roadhog Hook or a Sigma Rock, but you don't care about all that. All you're worried about is how much damage this thing does. Well, for that, it's very complicated. So first of all, it does have an 8-meter radius for who it affects after you shoot it. And upon impact, it does deal out 5 damage, but after, it does have a slight explosion of 50 damage to all players that is in that 8-meter range. But once you hit an enemy with your sunball, it now gives them a brand new effect that's called the Starstruck effect. So how this works is that it will slow the enemy down to 40% initially, but then over the 7-second time frame that that effect is happening, it will slow them down to 0%. But while that's all good, there's more to this ultimate that is very confusing, because this is where the chain effect comes in. You know, the explosion after the explosion. So once you stick an enemy, it'll do the initial damage that we talked about beforehand. It'll slow them, but if that enemy receives a total of 90 damage from anybody, not just Illari, from any of your allies, that sunball will then detonate for an additional 120 damage. Now, once that detonates, if the enemy is not dead by then, all the statuses will go away. And some other key details about this ability is that the sunball does pass through players and through barriers. It can be deflected and eaten, so Genji mains, you better look out for that sunball. And the Starstruck effect can be cleansed by a Kuriko grenade or a Zarya bubble. But that was her ultimate, which I think is an ultimate of all ultimates. Pretty cool hero, don't you think? But hot gamer boys and e-girls everywhere, that is the brand new hero. Like I said before, she can be very complicated, but even if you watch this video and understand, she's still someone that you have to get a lot of practice in to be able to fully master her. And I'm so glad you guys can finally play her because she is a really, really cool hero. But anyway, guys, I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. More Overwatch 2 videos to come, and bye.